last 3 years. And then we are also joined this month by DC Attorney General Brian Schwab, who will highlight the work that his office is doing with juveniles across the district. For the sake of time, we are going to jump right in. I do want to acknowledge that we are under a bit of a time crunch because there is a conflicting event. The NOMA bid is having their annual meeting, and members of our MPD team, as well as myself, are planning to join that meeting. And so you will notice later in the call, I will drop off, but my team will continue to facilitate. You will be in the very capable hands of Oliver Stout, the Director of Constituent Services for my team. And you will notice that MPD will eventually drop off the call as well. We'll start with the Attorney General after some introductory framing. And you, as always, will have an opportunity to ask questions. We will ask you to drop your questions in the chat, or you can use the Q&A function built within the Zoom platform. Next slide. As a reminder, we host these calls as an opportunity for neighbors to learn about all that is happening to keep us safe and the number of initiatives that are underway at any time. It is also an opportunity for you to get answers to your most pressing questions. And so we hope you will utilize this opportunity to learn and share. We know that this is not the most ideal time for everyone. But we have found that having this call during the workday works better both for our partners, but also team members who have any number of conflicting evening meetings given ANC and Civic Association schedules. Every month's call is recorded and uploaded to our YouTube channel as well as our website. It is shared in our weekly newsletter. So if you have a neighbor that misses today's call, feel free to share the link so that they can learn from today's information as well. I want to give a few updates. We are continuing to see a decline in violent crime across the district. Last year, I was very proud that Ward 5 saw the steepest decline at 39% in violent crime across the city. And I think that is in large part to many of the partners we have here today, including Assistant Chief Altieri and his leadership. This year, we are continuing to see declining crime from last year at 5%. We have more work to do, and we know that there are any number of persisting issues. So while we celebrate progress, we also acknowledge that there is a lot more to do. Pictured here on this slide, you'll see Oliver, who recently joined with MPD to conduct a walk on 12th Street in Brookland, giving a number of retail burglaries in that area. We are always thinking about how we can work with our partners to keep neighbors safe. And we rely on your tips and input. So I would say keep sharing with us as it informs the work that we're able to do with MPD and our other partners. I want to take a second to acknowledge the retirement of Assistant Chief Altieri. As many of you know, he's worked his way up through the ranks. When I first came into office, he was then Commander Altieri of the 5th District. And I feel comfortable saying he has set the bar very high and has served as a standard as it relates to working with our office across MPD. And on behalf of all of us here at the Ward 5 Council office, as well as neighbors all across Ward 5, I want to acknowledge the valiant work of Assistant Chief Altieri as he retires from the force. You may know that we acknowledged Assistant Chief Altieri at our Ward 5 award ceremony on March 12th. He received the Community Partner Award, and he is so very deserving. If I think of one individual that has been more selfless, more giving, more consistent and persistent, more patient, I can't think of anyone else. And he, again, has set the bar very high. I'm not sure if Assistant Chief Altieri wants to say a few words to acknowledge the community, but I will reserve this space, and I don't mean to put him on the spot. But again, want to just say thank you, Chief, for all that you've done, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you, Councilmember Parker. I promise I'll keep it brief. I know I always talk too much, but I love this job and I'm passionate about it. I want to thank everybody from Ward 5. Um, I'm leaving because I have some medical issues with my family back home I have to deal with, and it's a really hard decision to make. I love Washington, D.C. I love the citizens of Ward 5. Um, I really don't want to go, but I just feel an obligation to my family that I have to. It's been great working with everybody here. Councilmember Parker, you're the best partner I've ever worked with outside of the agency. Your passion, your drive to do good for the community, your selflessness, it is amazing. And I'm so grateful. I'm so very grateful that we met when we did and we were able to do the things we were able to do. Jeff Comp is amazing. He's probably going to do a much better job than I did. And Ward 5, you guys are going to love him. If you've not met him, he's very experienced, and I'll let him talk about himself. But I promised I would keep it short. Thank you all very much. And Councilmember, I hope to see you tomorrow at the walk concert.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Chief. You will see me tomorrow. We will ensure that we present you the proclamation that I so proudly introduced on your behalf. And I will just end on this note. I think many of our officers get a bad rap, and I think many more individuals and community members need to get to know those in the ranks like Chief Altieri. So thank you again for your work, partner. All right, we're going to keep it moving for the sake of time. As you know, I am the chair of the council's newly minted Committee on Youth Affairs. I wanted to give a very brief overview of some of the work that we've contributed to over the last few months. We completed performance oversight in February and March with agencies under our purview, including DRS, the Office of the Attorney General, CFSA, and more. Much of that oversight informs the work that we're able to do as we move into the budget oversight period, as well as introduce legislation. We are working on a comprehensive set of bills that we plan to roll out this fall, all geared toward expanding youth wellness and ensuring that our young people can continue to thrive in the district. We've hosted listening sessions with parents and young people at DRS. It was important for me to hear the experiences of our incarcerated youth directly from them, as well as their parents, to learn more about what we can be doing before a young person ever is incarcerated or goes down that path. We are scheduling a roundtable by the end of May, where we will focus on juvenile crime and the steps that are already underway by partners like the Office of the Attorney General, but many others, and what more we could be doing to rehabilitate our youth, given that so many of them need so much more support than we're able to give them at this time. And then lastly, we are looking forward to engaging earnestly in the budget. The mayor's budget is expected to be delivered May 15th. As many of you know, we are delayed in our process for a number of reasons. And I look forward to sharing more about the committee's budget oversight schedule. But all that to say, we are actively engaged in improving the well-being of youth across the district. Next, I wanted to highlight some trends that we are seeing with juvenile crime, and next you will hear from the Attorney General. I will highlight the headlines of this graph to say, on the left, you're looking at a graphic representation of arrests between January and March, and the blue bars represent adult arrest, and the very thin green bar at the bottom represents juvenile arrests. Two headlines I would provide is that as we are seeing declines in adult violent crime, we are seeing an increase in arrests. That is in part thanks to the heroic work that MPD partners are doing every day, as well as the work that our prosecutors are doing to keep our community safe. At the bottom, as I mentioned, those bars representing juvenile crime, we are seeing fewer arrests than we've seen in prior years, including pre-pandemic. Now, some people may read that in multiple ways. And I will just take this as an opportunity to say that we are finding more innovative ways of reaching our young people and steering them on the right path. And again, I invite the Attorney General to share more. On the right, you will see a little bit more information about categories of arrests. It is worth noting that the majority of adult arrests center around things like traffic violations and simple assault, and we certainly want to continue to work in those areas. Something that keeps me up at night is that top line issues for juvenile arrests center on release violations as well as violent offenses. And so we know that if we are to continue to drive down juvenile crime, we have to get to them before they are engaging in violent activity. So, with that, I want to tee up and turn it over to the Attorney General. As many of you all know, Brian Schwab has served as our Attorney General since 2023 and has been a great partner in this work with our office, but all of the district. Also, it's worth noting that in DC, the Attorney General prosecutes juvenile crime, and not just prosecutes juvenile crime, but leads any number of initiatives to support juveniles. And I think that's important to stress that accountability is one piece. But I truly believe rehabilitation and investment is a critical other piece. Before I turn to the Attorney General, one more slide, I did want to highlight that the mayor recently announced a juvenile crime initiative that we're going to hear more about from MPD a little bit in the call. But this initiative seeks to lean more towards prevention in partnership with MPD and other government agencies to reach our young people before they pick up a gun, before they get into a fight, before they engage in delinquent activity. And again, we're going to hear more about that initiative. But with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Brian Schwab, who I have appreciated his work and partnership to share a little bit more about his office, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Terrific. Well, thank you, Councilmember Parker, and hello, everybody. Delighted to get a chance to spend a little bit of time with you today. As Councilmember said, I'm Attorney General Brian Schwab. I want to jump right in. I think most people on the call know that we have a bifurcated structure in our city when it comes to criminal prosecution. The vast majority of crime in our city is committed by adults, and therefore the vast majority of prosecution of crime in our city is prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney's Office. Unlike the Attorney General, who was elected by the people of the District of Columbia, the U.S. Attorney is appointed by the President. And that has been a phenomena that our city has lived with since Home Rule in 1973. And I've been frequently on record saying that whether it's a Republican president or a Democratic president, it's important for us to know as DC residents that we are a rare jurisdiction where local crime, I'm not talking about federal crime, but local crime is not prosecuted by a locally elected DA or Attorney General or prosecutor, but is instead prosecuted by a federally appointed U.S. Attorney. We are responsible primarily when it comes to criminal prosecution for juvenile crime. We have been very, very busy, particularly since 2023, where our city saw, a historic spike in violent crime across the city, and that included juvenile crime as well. We know under our law that young people in particular need to face consequences when they break the law, when they harm people, particularly when they engage in violent crime. Deterrence in prosecution, we know, is also largely driven by ensuring that there are swift and certain consequences for criminal behavior. The data tells us that it's not necessarily the length of sentences, but the fact that people are held accountable right away with a certainty that they will be held accountable. And that informs a lot of the way in which we approach our cases, our ongoing cooperation, very close cooperation with MPD on the cases that we work together, and cases that MPD brings to our office for review and for papering. Like the adult criminal justice system, our prosecutors need to prove cases beyond a reasonable doubt. We need to have admissible evidence that will establish that a crime has occurred and be able to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. as the council member alluded to, we have seen a very substantial decrease in juvenile crime since 2023, but we are not at a place where anybody should be taking a victory lap or deciding that victory is won here. We have more work to do. It is true that as the number of arrests across the city have gone up by MPD over the last year, the number of juveniles being arrested has gone down in numbers. So last year, less than 7%, I think 6.5% of all arrests made in our city were made of young people, meaning younger than 18. That's the good news. We have a very small number of young people in our city who are getting arrested, and that gives us an opportunity to focus on those young people and their families. And I'm hoping that the new initiative is really going to be proactive in recognizing that we are a relatively confined geographic jurisdiction. We have a relatively small number of young people, and therefore it's a real opportunity for us as a city to get to the young people who are more likely to be engaging in particularly violent crime and stopping crime before it happens. Now, while the good news is that the number of young people arrested last year went down, the bad news is that with respect to certain types of crime, young people play a disproportionate role in that picture. And we're really talking about the crime of robbery, and within robbery, carjacking. There is some good news in this, in that the number of carjackings in our city went down very substantially between 2023 and 2024 and continues on a downward trend. This is the first quarter that we've had as a city, first quarter 2025, where the number of young people arrested for carjacking is actually less than the number of adults that have been arrested for carjacking. But we still know that when it comes to the type of violent crime that young people are committing, we're very concerned about carjacking as a type of a robbery crime, and too many of those crimes involving guns. We have too many illegal guns in the District of Columbia. We don't manufacture them here. They are brought into our city, and the secondary market for illegal guns is fueling a lot of the gun violence in our city. And juveniles, unfortunately, are not immune from that, and too many young people end up showing up in our criminal justice system younger, where their first offense is a serious offense, and too often with a gun. So the lawyers in my office have been prosecuting cases since I was elected and came into office more than a couple years ago. Both the sheer number as well as the percentage of cases that our office is papering on serious violent crime are at historically high levels. Last year, 86% of the carjacking cases that MPD brought to us were papered. More than that with respect to homicides and assault with deadly weapon. We have a very, very busy group of prosecutors that are in court regularly prosecuting these cases. Unlike adult cases, juvenile cases come to trial very quickly, sometimes within 30 to 45 days. Puts very much of a premium on being ready to bring the evidence to the court to establish our burden. And so cooperation with the community in getting good information from witnesses and folks who are have information relevant to prosecuting crime is very, very important to our office. And of course, we welcome the cooperation with your office and with MPD on that front. Now, I will say that unlike the adult system, the criminal justice system for young people has a very high priority on rehabilitation, recognizing that young people in the criminal justice system are different than adults, and our system is geared to not only holding them accountable, making sure the public is safe, but that we're also getting young people the services they need. I've been concerned about kids in the deep end of the system not getting the kind of rehabilitative attention and service they need, notwithstanding the fact that it's a relatively small number. I commend the council and Councilmember Parker, and you in particular, for supporting and running with the bill that I introduced last term called the Road Act, that was really focusing on making sure that DYRS, when they have young people committed to its custody, is doing everything it can to get kids the services they need, the support they need right away. As I said,
Mr. Attorney General, I'm not sure if it's just on my end, but it's your sound cut out.
All right, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yes.
So thank you for, I hope you heard that the Road Act is a commitment to making sure that DYRS, when young people are at the deep end of our system, are getting prompt attention, tailored services for their needs so that we drive recidivism down for kids who have been in the system. We also have to focus as a city, and it's a very, very high priority for me and my team, on keeping young people away from the criminal justice system. Very, very rarely do we have a young person who MPD brings to us with a serious charge where we have not seen the systems of our government fail that young person and their family time and time again before they show up in the criminal justice system. That's our education system, our housing system, our healthcare system. And on all of those things, we know that if we don't pay attention to those upstream problems, we're going to have a continuation. So high priority for my office using our affirmative litigation tools. We're very much focused on taking on slumlords. We know that housing instability can play a big role for young people. We know that we want to use our tools to take on financial exploitation. Too often, poverty and financial exploitation are parts of the ingredients that we see in young people that are showing up in the criminal justice system. And then we also want to use the powers that we have to try to keep illegal guns out of the District of Columbia. We've been aggressive and creative in the types of tools we can use to keep guns out of the district. We also want to recognize that while we do have a small number of young people who are caught up in the criminal justice system, the vast, vast majority of young people in our city are doing extraordinary things, oftentimes against extraordinary odds. And the narrative, often on the news, often in the press, about young people committing crimes creates a misimpression that the majority of young people in our city are not doing great things. My rough numbers, we had about 1,000 young people last year arrested for some crime. Many of those arrests were not for violent crime, and many of those arrests were for their first offense. But we've got about 65 or 70,000 young people in our city in the age range 10 to 18. And so we've got 1,000 arrests. We've got 70,000 young people in that. And keeping in perspective, what that means is, fortunately, it is a very small number of young people who are getting caught up in the criminal justice system, who are being arrested. We need to hold them accountable. We need to continue to do that work. But I find hope in the fact that with a relatively small number, a relatively tight geography in the District of Columbia, and public servants like the council, like the mayor, like our chief of police, committed to young people, that we actually can help these young people and their families, get them onto the right track, and make our city safer in the long run. So let me stop with that. I'm happy to take questions. I hope I'm within my time that you've allotted me, but I appreciate the opportunity to chat a little bit about the work we're doing.
That was great. Thank you. And I will jump right into questions so we can get to our partners at MPD before they jump off. We have a couple of questions that we wanted to ask, and I see there is at least one in the Q&A. One is, there is often concern about summer months when it's warmer out and school is out. Can you speak to some of the work that your office is contributing to preempt any issues that we may anticipate from juveniles over the summer months?
We're very focused on engaging with our out-of-school time partners, the community organizations that are thinking about how to keep kids busy during the summer. That is oftentimes critical. We want young people at the end of the summer day to be so tired and wiped out that they fall into bed and fall asleep. So being active, being in a place where they can be running around and engaging in activities that they enjoy. They've earned their summer break. Many kids want to continue with their teaching and learning and explore other hobbies and interests. And so there's some extraordinary organizations around the city that I loosely call part of our out-of-school time, our OST cluster. And I work regularly with those organizations to make sure they're knowing each other, knowing the organization's strengths, see how the AG's office can help support them. And my hope is that young people and their families know, not just with the mayor's youth employment program, but other activities that are available to them. Hoping that DPR is going to be able to make sure that our pools and our recreation centers are available in safe spaces for young people to be in. And I think the more planning and information that gets out to young people and their families about what their opportunities for the summer are is going to be very helpful in terms of us making sure that we have a safe 2025 summer.
Absolutely. You talked about the Road Act, and I want to again applaud your team and you for introducing that legislation. The latest information we have is our recidivism rates for juveniles is roughly around 50%, meaning at least half of the young people entering DRS end up back at DRS for a new crime. And I just want to underscore this point because that is why it is so essential that we ensure that these young people in our care, in our custody, that are already detained and prosecuted are receiving rehabilitative services so that they can leave DRS and re-enter society and succeed. Can you just speak to why it was so important for you to introduce this legislation and what you're hoping to come out of its implementation?
Well, it's all part of having to have a comprehensive approach to public safety and juvenile safety in our city. And so we have a spectrum of where young people are showing up. We've got many, many more young people who are not in the criminal justice system. They're not in the child and family services system. But we can make sure we keep them safe. Then we have young people who are starting to touch the system with a low-level offense, or we see them showing up in the abuse and neglect system, and we've got to really target them and give them support so they get back on track. And then we have kids who are in the deep end. And fortunately, there are fewer kids in the deep end who have committed more serious crime. And those are the young people that are showing up at DRS committed to DRS. And I was concerned because the reality is, think about the amount of time that MPD or prosecutors in my office spend with young people. An event happens, an arrest is made, there's enough evidence to go to trial, and a trial happens in the juvenile system 30 to 45 days, and then a young person's committed to DRS. It's a very short window of time. Whereas the folks at DRS have these young kids who are committed to them for an extended period of time. We need to make sure that when that happens, that we're committing the resources of our city to the rehabilitative aspect, that those resources result in kids staying on the right path when they come out of commitment. And when you see the number of young people who have been rearrested or it's not just arrested, the numbers you refer to are kids who are actually convicted of another crime that is committed after they've been committed. It tells me that we need to focus on what's not happening at DRS to make sure that we drive those numbers down. And what we observed, one of the main innovations that we said is that for too long, kids were waiting for their treatment plan and their service plans to be available for them. So that instead of that swift and certain consequence that particularly the teenage brain needs to know, you have extended period of time going and kids don't get the accountability and rehabilitative attention that they need right away. Many of these young kids have very serious educational neglect or educational issues they need. Many are struggling with trauma and psychological challenges. Some have drug addiction issues. The quicker we can get them taken care of with the focus on what they need, the improved results will flow from that. And that's largely what the Road Act does. It requires tailored treatment plans for kids in commitment to be in place much more quickly than they have been historically.
Thank you. Just two more quick questions, and I promise we're going to pivot. One is on behalf of community members. I hear frequently from parents or grandparents that say, I don't know what to do. I have a child or a grandchild that is out of control, or I'm really concerned about what might you encourage them to do, or what resources might be available to them that they can look to? And then we do have one question in the Q&A. I'm going to, well, now we have several, but one is around Initiative 83. I'm not going to ask you to get into the politics of all of that, but the general question was, will your office follow up with the Board of Elections determination of fraud and investigate and possibly prosecute? I'll generally leave it at that.
So I'm I'm not sure who asked the question about I3. I have a sense as who it is, and I'm not going to talk about ongoing investigations or things that the office may be doing in terms of criminal or civil investigations that are ongoing. Our office was asked, and we did give an opinion about the legal sufficiency of the I-83 being part of the referendum and process for being on the ballot. That's a public statement that our office has issued on that front. And you know, I hear it too, Zachary, in terms of, sorry, I hear it too from members of the community, getting a little bit of feedback from someone there, of parents who say that they're very, very worried about their kids, and they don't want their kids to get arrested or worse, be in a place where they may get hurt. And this is the point I was alluding to before in terms of systems that are not meeting the needs of children and families earlier in the system. And then we ask the police and the courts and prosecutors to deal with problems later. And so this is really a commitment that our city has to make, the council and all of our agencies, to being more readily available for families who need help earlier. And there needs to be a commitment to mental health and mental health resources, to addressing a lot of the trauma that young people are carrying that is oftentimes contributing to why it's difficult for guardians, parents, grandparents to manage. We got a lot of kids who are self-medicating with cannabis and weed right now, it's not your grandmother's weed anymore. I mean, these are very dangerous, oftentimes laced drugs that are really affecting the brain development of young people. And I don't think it's realistic to constantly expect the criminal justice system, the juvenile justice system, police to be the cure-all for that. We've got to ask other aspects of our government, other aspects of our nonprofit community to be there for families earlier.
Awesome. I am going to take a point of personal privilege to raise up these questions. I would just ask if you could answer rapid fire. Thank you, Uchenna, for dropping them in the chat. I think they are good questions. Can the AG discuss talks about emerging our violence interruption programs and what is needed for these programs to increase their effectiveness? Your 60-second answer.
I can't do the rapid fire to all of that. I'm on record saying that there is a good reason to continue investing in violence interruption. I think violence interruption is part of a comprehensive approach. It's not in lieu of policing. It's not in lieu of law enforcement, but it's an important piece of how we keep our community safe, particularly with respect to gun violence, and particularly with one type of gun violence, which Cure the Streets focuses on, which is retaliatory gun violence that's focused on geographic beefs that have existed in our city. And I have told Brooke Pinto, the chair of the Judiciary Committee, and others that I will be supportive of a merger if I believe that the integrity and the work of violence interruption, the accountability of violence interruption, and the professionalism that we have insisted on here at the Attorney General's office can continue on as part of a merge program, and I think it can.
Absolutely. And then lastly, there was a question about truancy. Very quickly, this is something that is a key priority for me. We have a bifurcated system. CFSA handles truancy referrals for young children under 13. The court social services handles them for our high schoolers, namely, but those over 13. After court social services, those referrals go to the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General then either decides to prosecute and or make referrals to other diversion type programs to rehabilitate or get that young person on the right path. I'll give you the final word. Maybe you could speak to why or like what your office is doing to address the truancy issue.
Well, as with our other programs, we're trying to get at it early, to be proactive, to address what are the barriers that keep young people and teenagers from being in school and addressing that. When you ask kids and their families why they're not in school, you find out that there are a lot of answers to that. Sometimes it's because older kids are taking care of younger siblings. Sometimes they feel like they've got to work to be able to afford to support their families. Sometimes young people are afraid and don't feel like they can get safely to school. Sometimes kids don't have clean clothes to wear and they don't want to show up and be ridiculed in school. So there are lots of reasons when you ask the question and are curious about why young people are not showing up in school. What's important to know is that we as a city decided back in 2019, 2020 that criminalizing truancy, trying to arrest our way out of truancy, is not the way we get people back in school and keep them in school. And so, again, we need to do our very, very best to address the barriers that are keeping kids from school and address those barriers so that we get them into school where they belong. Because safe kids are in school learning. They are ideally coming to school with enough rest so that they can learn. That's part of the reason why I've been so aggressive about going after social media platforms, because we know that the peak hours that young people are on their phones looking at social media is between 4 and 6 in the morning, when they should be sleeping. The kids aren't full. If they don't have food to eat, they're not rested. They're not going to be successful in school. And we got to maximize the kids learning in school, and getting them to school and keeping them safe in school is obviously step one in that.
Absolutely. I will end on that note. Thank you so much, Attorney General Brian Schwab, for your work and for joining with us. If there are other questions we were not able to get to, our office will reach out and get answers so we can share them in our newsletter. But you're always welcome to share on our Ward 5 Public Safety Call.
I appreciate the invitation, and let me just chime in. Chief Altieri, I'm wishing you the best. I enjoy running into you every now and then for breakfast, and you're always working. So if you're ever ready back for a breakfast when you're back in town, I hope you'll let me buy you a coffee when you're back.
I appreciate it, sir. It's funny you say that. We just had my retirement lunch at Farmers. So,
yeah.
So that's the spot. Yep.
He was a fixture when I would walk in. So,
yes, sir. Before the crime briefing.
I wish you the best. I wish you the best.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Absolutely. My personal apologies to our MPD team. Thank you for being flexible with time. We are going to now pivot, and I will turn it over immediately to either Assistant Chief Altieri or COP to give a briefing both on the mayor's juvenile initiative, but also what is the latest in your jurisdiction.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everybody. And thanks, Councilmember Parker, for having us join here. Really honored to be able to share what we're doing on the MPD side of things. Really great discussion there with Attorney General Schwab. So appreciate it. Looking forward to working with everybody moving forward. Since we're on the topic, I'll just stick with the juvenile initiative that we're working on now. Obviously, this is something that's very near and dear, and something that our chief is very passionate about. She really cares about the youth in our community, has made that very clear to the members of our department, that we need to focus on our youth and find ways to keep them engaged and out of criminal activity. So with that, we have established our juvenile investigations and response unit. This unit is it's part of our broader strategy to disrupt those cycles of the youth violence through a balance of enforcement, monitoring, and support. So we've got detectives now assigned, investigators now assigned to our, we're calling it the JIRU, the Juvenile Investigations and Response Unit. It does fall under our Youth and Family Engagement Division under Commander Sharday Harris. Those detectives and investigators are responsible for monitoring our at-risk youth, monitoring those children who are, as Attorney General Schwab said, are repeat offenders and are recidivists. How do we break that cycle? How do we intervene? How do we get these children the support that they need to break that cycle of violence and get them out of the life of crime and set them on the right path to things that are more productive and beneficial for them as they move forward? So we've got a number of initiatives in our youth and family engagement division and in the JIRU. You mentioned earlier, Councilmember Parker, you've got community members who reach out to you and ask, I've got this grandson, or I've got this, member of my family who I just can't point him in the right direction, right? I don't know what to do. I just want to let everybody on the call know, we've got a really excellent team of officers at our Youth and Family and Engagement Division who care really deeply about kids. That is their passion. They want to connect with these kids. They do personal mentorship with these kids. Grandma can call, mom can call, anybody can call and say, hey, look, here's my child. Can you please get him engaged, get him into something? We have a badges and barbers program where they teach kids how to not only give haircuts, but maybe they need a haircut, as the Attorney General was talking about earlier. Some of these kids just need some things that they don't have things available to them that our team can help Sorry about that. I think I'm back now.
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Can you hear me? Sorry, I am sitting outside here on North Capitol Street, but to basically sum it up, our gyro is a unit that's going to not only target our repeat offenders, not target, but focus on our repeat offenders and how we can guide them into more productive lifestyles, but also to offer support on the front end as an intervention and support on the front end so they don't end up in the juvenile justice system in the first place. So I really just wanted to highlight that. We're not solely an enforcement unit. We want to emphasize the prevention and sustained engagement with them. We are going to work with our community partners. DYRS, the schools is a big one. We want to go to school and let the kids know that we're there for them, and that, you know, the ones who are the repeat offenders, you know, we're here to support you. So we'll evaluate our success based on the improved attendance in school, reduced recidivism, and more engagement between the family and the schools. So I'm happy to talk more about it. If there are any specific questions related to the gyro, I'm happy to talk about that.
Awesome. They're not related to that, but I'm going to take this opportunity in our next few minutes while we still have you all to talk about some very specific Ward 5 area issues. I'm going to just name them, and then you and Commander Rooney can tackle them while we have you. One is from a Trinidad neighbor who said they're worried about what seems to be rising crime in the area. What steps can be taken to prevent these matters? Another neighbor in our Fort Totten area, which is in 4D, is worried about lighting, namely along Galloway Street and the main paths around the Fort Totten station. And then lastly, another neighbor talked about frequent break-ins and burglaries on 12th Street in our Brooklyn community. So if you all could take any and all of those, 12th Street, Trinidad, Fort Totten, I think that would be a great point to leave us in.
Sure. I'll tackle the second two. I'll let Commander Rooney speak more intimately about the Trinidad neighborhood. First and for the lights. The lights are an issue that we try to address also with our staff. We can submit 311 requests for those. Those are fairly easy, but we're also happy to take your input on where additional lighting might be needed, because we know that lighting does help deter some crime in areas, and we're certainly willing to support there. So either through 311 in the mayor's office, Mayor Citywide Command Center, or through our watch commanders, reach out to your PSA lieutenants, reach out to your district watch commanders. Let us know where you have lighting issues. We'll certainly be happy to forward those requests along, because they help us in the long run as well.
And for neighbors, we will share all of those contacts in our newsletter. It is worth noting this neighbor did reference 311. We know that they are often closed out and not acted upon. So yes, we will follow up to share the specifics of where that neighbor referenced.
Absolutely. And I think just to point out really quick too, our multi-agency task force walks are a good thing also, and during those walks to be able to point out the lighting issues when we have all of our district government agencies present with us. That's the perfect time to kind of bring those issues to light. And if you'd like to schedule one of those, again, reach out to your district commanders, reach out to your PSA lieutenants, let them know that you're interested in that. And that's certainly something that we will work forward or work on. As it relates to the commercial burglaries, citywide, not just in Ward 5, we did see a spike in commercial establishment burglaries over the last year. Those were all happening in the early morning hours. We made several adjustments to combat that, and we have, I'm proud to report, seen a drastic reduction in our commercial burglaries since taking those actions. We've upgraded all of our burglary assignments now to priority 1 assignments, which means, you know, before we used to get a burglar alarm and we would send an officer just as a routine response, and they would check on the burglar alarm. Those burglar alarms are now being dispatched as priority assignments, and you will see officers responding in a lights and siren status, basically, to go, especially in those early morning hours, to get to those burglar alarms and try to catch these burglars. We've also enacted some covert postures in different areas of the city to try to catch the burglars. We have made several arrests, and in making those arrests, we have seen our numbers dip. So I think we've made some really great progress there. I don't know that we've seen a commercial establishment burglary on the 12th Street corridor in the last several weeks. Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's been at least 2 weeks since we've seen our last burglary up on the 12th Street corridor, and is generally the same across the city. So I think we're making some really good strides there, and we're just going to stick with our strategy and going forward with that.
Awesome. I do want to be respectful of your time. I know you all have to jump for the No More Bid event. So thank you for joining, Assistant Chief Cop, Commander Rooney. Thank you. Assistant Chief Altieri, I know you're out the door, but if we could use you for the next 5 minutes as I transition, and we will close out this call early today, ending at 4 o'clock versus 4:30, just given some of the scheduling challenges. But Assistant Chief Altieri, if you could speak to maybe some of the historic work that has happened in Trinidad in particular, and what neighbors might be able to look to. And I know this may be an unfortunate question as you're on your way out the door, but I have faith you will be able to handle it.
So, I mean, historically, as you know, Trinidad is one of the two places in the city we actually closed down some major narcotics trafficking. And that's something we're going to continue with. The good thing now with having Chief Cop in the position you guys have him in is his unit was directly responsible for working with the FBI and other federal partners and getting that kind of thing done. So those type of actions are very doable. They are time consuming, but they're something that I think with Jeff.
Chief, I don't think we can hear you anymore. I think you got muted.
Okay. One thing I would say to the community, it's really good if you can call or text anything like that in, if you see any sort of suspicious activity, because that does help us build our cases. The way we were able to build major cases on 2 drug crews, and this is the first time in the history of DC, 2 crews were taken out at the same time. We were able to do that because citizens were calling stuff in that just seemed kind of not innocuous, but to some people were just, it wasn't like a citizen was going and buying drugs for us, but they were seeing activity where we were able to build something off of it. Sometimes we can't, sometimes we can't, but it's always worth making the effort, and it's never a bother. A lot of times community members talk to me and they're like, man, I saw something, I thought it was an issue, but I don't want to bother the police, and you guys are busy. But that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. I encourage you to do that. It's never a bother. And I think reaching out like that really does help us do the right thing. So that's definitely something we can look at. I also say the only thing is too is, it's hard to say, it's hard to talk about patience and things like that when dealing with this type of stuff. But you have to understand when something like that's going on, you're not going to know about it. You're not going to be told about it. We're not going to share that information because we'll predict these cases. But stuff could always be in the works. It just really depends on the type of investigation. Is that good for that?
Yep, that is.
Okay. Okay.
Do we have any more questions?
We have a few that I don't know got fully addressed in the Q&A box. So Assistant Chief Altieri, if you don't mind just addressing, this is something that our office has been focused on, and I'm seeing in the Q&A box about retail burglaries and thefts along 12th Street Northeast. Anything you can offer there, especially the CVS on 12th Street Northeast. I don't know if you have insight into that.
No, I do. So, we have had, retail burglaries, retail thefts, 2 separate things. So, theft obviously is when the store is open and that's somebody going into the store, taking an item, according to the DC code, taking an item and then actually walking past all points of sale and exiting the store. That's when it becomes a theft. A burglary is when the store is closed after hours. Generally, people are coming in to steal merchandise. I just want to make the clarity so, we can just understand each one's a little bit different. So for retail theft, when I was at 5D, and I know it's continued, we partnered with CVS. We partnered with the CVSs with the highest amount of theft. 12th Street was not one of them, but we partnered with CVSs based on where they wanted us to be in order to try to cut their theft down. And what we would do is we would work with their security officers. We would post an officer inside with the security team, watching the monitor. When somebody came in to steal, once they exited the place, we would effect an arrest on the outside with an arrest team. It was also good because the security people generally would know if people were barred from the store, if they'd been arrested before for theft, and we could arrest people for that, also working with them. Now, we had done operations when I was still there, and I know Commander Rooney had done some operations since he's been there with the 12th Street CVS. Again, that type of decision is usually made by their corporate offices, like where they feel they have the most loss. At the time when I was there, the stores with the most loss was Rhode Island Avenue. That was the number one. Washington Place was the number one place from 5D. But we did rotate it through in order to do it. It's a challenge because with these type of misdemeanor crimes, it's not something that generally people get a lot of jail time, if any jail time for. But what is something we've really started focusing on, and I've really tried to encourage my folks to focus on it, is sort of aggregating the offenses. So if we develop these relationships with CVS, which I think we have pretty good ones, we can know like, hey, this guy's been here. He stole like 3 other times. He wasn't arrested those times. We have the video. We can build that into a bigger case. So again, it's trying to do that to make it, I guess, to make it happen on a bigger level. And also, with CVS, I mean, that's a problem we have had throughout the city. I know many of the CVSs are leaving, which is unfortunate because we have to try to keep retail businesses here. Unfortunately, we do not have the staffing to leave people to guard CVSs or any other retail establishment. So we have to kind of try to work with them and with their security teams. And a lot of times, it's important as a community, I think, to get the representatives on from these other places, like the businesses who have security. CVS is a particular thing, but the security's job is only to be there if something happens that's unsafe. So they don't, if they see someone stealing, they call us and wait for us to get there. To me, that's always seemed like a bit of a problem. So, but that's their corporate roles. Not every security company is like that. So my thing, I would think it'd be great if you guys could bring them in. I think CVS is a great partner. And any other place like that, bring them in and have them have this discussion, because Safeway, for example, their SPOs will arrest somebody. So, and that has helped us a lot.
Helpful, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, go ahead, Oliver. You can see the questions now.
Yep, I
Okay,
can. So we have one other question, and that
Sure.
she asks, who can we contact for a possible stolen car on Franklin Street to have the car towed? The owner got something on the car.
Oh, that's a good question. So they have some, what do you mean they got something on like a ticket or something?
I think she edited. So the car was towed in front of 30th Franklin Street, and a young man was throwing rocks at the car. The owner got something out the car.
Oh, okay. So the car is parked. The car is, so if the car, if
what I
Go
think
ahead.
she's saying is, I think that the car may have been a stolen vehicle,
okay.
and the car is now parked, and they would like to see if MPD
Yeah, no problem.
can- Yep.
So just all you need to do is that can be, you could either call, personally, I would call MPD for that. And I'll tell you why. I just think not that DPW doesn't do a great job. We're 24 hours a day. They're not. So I would reach out to whatever district, that in this case, 5D. Oliver, if you guys want to reach out to the watch
Yep.
commander up there, just give them a call. I would put a 911 call in too, so it's tracked. It's a very important thing, so we can track this stuff, so we know how many
Mhm.
calls we get.
Yep.
But I would have them call 911, report, ask somebody to come up and check, and then maybe someone from your office, you or Melissa, could give the watch commander a call,
Yep.
get the tag number, an officer will come up and run it. Now that car might not be stolen, so I don't know, but a lot of times we get calls, and it's great people call them in, because a lot of times we do get vehicles recovered that way. But sometimes, just so you all know, you might see a car without a state tags or something like that. And sometimes it's somebody who lives in the neighborhood, because what's a really kind of a bummer about this area is places like in Virginia, for example, where they're super strict about your car being registered. They will register someone's car that lives in DC here in Virginia. So the cars will have Virginia tags. So a lot of times it's confusing with the citizens. But yeah, so if they call 911, Oliver, and if you give the watch commander a call, make sure you give them the tag number, make and model. They'll come up and
Yep.
run that car, and they'll run the VIN.
Yep. Sounds good. And I'm connected with that constituent as well, so we can
Cool.
definitely escalate that and work with MPD and DPW to
Okay.
see if we can figure out what's going on with that car.
Excellent, sir.
I think that's about all the questions that we do have.
Okay.
Yep, that's about it from us.
Well, cool. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much,
Yes.
Oliver, and I'll see you tomorrow. Melissa, I don't know if you're coming, but if anyone here wants to come see a walkout, my retirement walkout's tomorrow from 12 to 2 at 441 4th Street. Feel free to come.
Yes. And I would also say to neighbors, thanks for joining. As you guys probably already know, I'm Oliver, and I'm the Constituent Service Director for the Ward 5 Council Office, and I lead on majority of the public safety aspect of the office. So therefore, I'm always in constant communication with our MPD and our safety partners. So as Chief Altieri, me and him, we used to literally talk all the time. But I would like to say that it's been a pleasure working with him, and I hate to see him go, but I just want to say thank you for your phenomenal service. And if neighbors have any incidents or anything that you would like for our office to follow up on, we are happy to do that. You can shoot me. I'll drop my information into the chat, and you can also reach out to our office and we'll follow up on specific incidents with MPD.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much. Take care.